Vladimir Putin held an operational meeting at Novo Ogaryovo. The meeting was attended by members of the Security Council, the government, representatives of the presidential administration, heads of law enforcement agencies, as well as the governors of the Belgorod, Bryansk, and Kursk regions. Vladimir Putin. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. The topic of our meeting is the situation in Russia's border regions, the Bryansk, Belgorod, and Kursk regions. An assessment of the ongoing events must, of course, be made, and it will be. But the main priority right now is to address the immediate tasks that have arisen at this moment and based on forecasts of how the situation may develop. The primary responsibility lies, of course, with the Ministry of Defense, to push and drive the enemy out of our territories and, together with the Border Service, to ensure the reliable protection of our state borders. The Federal Security Service, in cooperation with the National Guard, must enforce the counter-terrorism regime and effectively combat enemy sabotage and reconnaissance groups. The National Guard itself has its own combat missions to fulfill. Civil agencies are obligated to provide law enforcement agencies with all necessary support. I won't list everything, but this certainly includes industry, transportation, the construction sector, healthcare, and financial resources. And finally, we must all, together with the leaders of the respective regions, focus on the main task, which is to support our people who need help and protection. Before we move on to our work and give the floor to the meeting participants, I would like to add a few more words. It has now become clear why the Kyiv regime refused our proposals to return to a peaceful settlement plan, as well as the proposals of interested and neutral mediators. It seems that the enemy, with the help of their Western masters who are carrying out their will and waging war against us through the hands of Ukrainians, is attempting to improve their negotiating positions for the future. But what kind of negotiations can we even talk about with people who indiscriminately attack civilians, target civilian infrastructure, or try to create threats to nuclear energy facilities? What is there to discuss with them at all? Second, these actions undoubtedly pursue a primary military goal, to halt the advance of our forces towards the full liberation of the territories of the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics, and the territory of Novorossiya. But what is the reality? What is happening on the front line, and what are the results? The pace of offensive operations by the Russian armed forces, volunteers, and veterans has not only not slowed down but has actually increased, by 1.5 times. Along the entire line of contact, our armed forces are making progress. Finally, another obvious objective of the enemy is to sow discord and division within our society, to intimidate people, to destroy the unity and cohesion of Russian society, in other words, to strike at our internal political situation. However, the response from Russian citizens is already clear. There is unanimous support for all those who have fallen into hardship, support for the army, and, importantly, an increase in the number of people willing to join our men, our fighters, who are heroically defending Russia with weapons in hand. The number of those seeking to sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense has risen in recent days. The leaders of the Kyiv regime are not only committing crimes against the Russian people but have essentially embarked on a path of exterminating the Ukrainians themselves, a people they seemingly no longer consider their own. The losses of the Ukrainian armed forces are dramatically increasing, including among their most combat-capable units, which the enemy is redeploying to our border. The enemy will undoubtedly receive a fitting response, and all the goals set before us will unquestionably be achieved. Let's move on to our work. To begin our meeting, I would like to give the floor to the regional leaders. Let's start with the Bryansk region. Please. A. Bogomaz, good afternoon, esteemed Vladimir Vladimirovich. The situation in the Bryansk region today is, one could say, stable, much the same as it was a month ago. We are seeing a consistent number of shelling incidents, around 80 to 90 per week. However, I would like to point out that we are seeing an increasing focus on targeting the civilian population. For instance, just yesterday, on the 9th, out of 22 attacks, 11 were aimed at civilians, at homes, cars, and buses. We are covering all the damages from the regional budget. As of today, we are not relocating people. Our security agencies are analyzing the situation, and we have jointly decided that evacuation is not yet necessary. However, we are prepared for it, and we always offer residents the option to move to temporary accommodation centers if they are afraid, though so far, no one has expressed a desire to leave. This work is ongoing, and we have established effective coordination with all security agencies. As part of the counter-terrorism operation, we have prepared temporary accommodation centers for 1,576 people, and if necessary, we can expand to accommodate over 32,000. We have also revised our strategy, taking into account the experience of the Kursk region, and have moved all temporary accommodation centers to a distance of more than 50 kilometers from the border. The tasks set by the Ministry of Defense are clear. Marashakir Zyanovich Kusnulin has been holding meetings with us, and we are fully prepared, fully mobilized, and ready to get to work. Any issues that arose such as funding or shortages of materials have been resolved. V. Putin, thank you. Here's what I want to say. It is clear to us, and I have already mentioned this, that the enemy will continue trying to destabilize the situation in the border areas to shake up the internal political situation in our country. So, just because the situation in the Bryansk region is relatively calm today, it does not mean that it will remain the same tomorrow. I ask you to approach this matter with the utmost attention, in collaboration with the security forces and the headquarters being established under the FSB of Russia, with the support of the National Guard. All issues that need to be discussed and prepared for any development of the situation should be coordinated in advance with the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations. Is that clear? A. Bogomaz, yes, it is. V. Putin, agreed. Please, the Belgorod region. V. Gladkov, good afternoon, esteemed Vladimir Vladimirovich. Esteemed colleagues. In recent times, the situation has improved only in the city of Belgorod itself. Compared to the first quarter of 2024, there have only been 2 missile attacks on Belgorod with cluster munitions. However, the situation in the border areas has sharply deteriorated, with a significant increase in shelling from both artillery and mortars, as well as a marked increase in drone attacks. In 2024, the number of damaged and destroyed homes has risen sharply. Over the past 2.5 years, more than 30,000 homes and apartments have been affected, and we have restored 25,000 of them. Unfortunately, the situation along the border does not allow us to carry out active restoration work. The most severe situation is currently in Shebekino, a town of 38,000 people in a district with 85,000 residents. In 2024 alone, nearly 300 people have been injured, and 36 have died. We experience between 3 to 5 attacks daily, mainly from artillery and rocket systems, with damage to 3 to 5 houses each day, primarily to windows and roofs. While we do not have complete information, our estimates suggest that 50 to 70% of Shebekino's population has left the area, and social tension in the town is rising because we cannot guarantee their safety. We are placing people in temporary accommodation centers. Back in 2022, we set up 17,000 places. Currently, we have 2,100 people in these centers within the region and 1,000 people outside the region. After today's events, we relocated around 10,000 people from the Krasnoyarsky district, and temporary accommodation centers have increased by another 1,500 places. Thanks to your decision, Vladimir Vladimirovich, we currently have the capacity to house up to 6,500 people outside the Belgorod region. These are people with minor injuries or whose homes have been damaged or completely destroyed. We now have 2,800 people in such accommodations. Thanks to your directive, 5,500 children have been evacuated out of the region this summer, totaling around 15,000 people. We will continue this work. In addition to Shebekino, the affected areas include Krasnaya Yeroga, Graverin, a third of the Belgorod district, Borisovsky district, and Valyuevsky district. We are very grateful for your decision, esteemed Vladimir Vladimirovich, to relocate 12,000 people from the settlements that are now effectively closed. However, in the areas where daily shelling occurs, we face the imminent threat of the approaching winter and almost no ability to bring in rescue equipment. Why? Because the enemy destroys it. We cannot provide medical assistance because the enemy destroys it. In many cases, we cannot restore electricity, and we understand that as winter approaches, this problem will multiply. Overall, this situation affects approximately 115,000 people in the border areas. Regarding decisions, I would like to make a request. A recent decision was made to increase payments for emergency situations and terrorist attacks. Unfortunately, although we understand this may have been a technical error, people are very concerned and feel it is unfair that these increased payments do not apply to residents of districts affected by shelling from the Ukrainian armed forces. I ask that these increased payments, from 10 to 15, from 50 to 75, from 100 to 150, also be extended to the Belgorod region. I would also like to ask, if possible, to address a significant problem: when a person's home is completely destroyed, they still have mortgage obligations. The banks only provide a 6-month deferment, but it is physically impossible to build a new house or apartment building within 6 months. It seems fair to write off the mortgage with the subsequent provision of housing through the programs currently being implemented. Regarding today's situation in Krasnaya Yeroga, I hope that the coordination between all the security forces, primarily the Ministry of Defense and the Border Service, will resolve the current situation that arose this morning. I hope that tomorrow we can return people to their homes, except for 3 settlements, primarily Kolodilovka, which is still uninhabited but is under constant shelling, and we will make a decision on its relocation and provide housing. This is possible within the framework of previously made decisions by the government of the Russian Federation and your decision, esteemed Vladimir Vladimirovich. That's all. V. Putin, thank you. Denis Valentinovich. D. Manchurov, yes, Vladimir Vladimirovich. V. Putin, please, go ahead and comment. We've already discussed some of these issues just now. Please. D. Manchurov, yes, Vladimir Vladimirovich, thank you very much. Regarding the Kursk region, we are in daily contact with Alexei Borisovich. Reports are coming in from all the agencies that have formed their headquarters, primarily concerning federal emergency situations, the Ministry of Emergency Situations. All necessary work is being carried out to evacuate the population to temporary accommodation centers. By your order, payments are being provided, including a one-time payment of 10,000 rubles per person. Today, we provided clarification, including regarding the payments provided under emergency situations, explaining that these are 2 different payments: 10,000 rubles and 15,000 rubles. All necessary measures are being implemented, and we are keeping everything under control. The same goes for Rossity, as transformer damage and power outages are constantly occurring. Rossity is promptly responding in the areas where it is safe to do so. Where it is impossible, switching is being done. I recently reported to you on the situation in Kurchatov. Vladimir Vladimirovich, all other issues are under control, and we are working closely with the region. Thank you. V. Putin, look, Vyacheslav Vladimirovich Gladkov has just raised several issues, regarding mortgages, among other things. Can you respond to this right now? D. Manchurov, regarding the Belgorod region, I can say that a decision has been made, and you have supported it, concerning the Kursk region, specifically a moratorium on mortgage and consumer loan payments. All the banks have already started working on this. This includes SBE Bank, VTB, and all other banking institutions that have provided services to residents of the Kursk region. We will also quickly implement this for the Belgorod region. V. Putin, yes, this needs to be done for sure. Marashakir Zyanovich. M. Kusnulin, Vladimir Vladimirovich, we will prepare this decision. It is absolutely fair, and it should immediately be extended to the Belgorod, Kursk, and potentially Bryansk regions, should such situations arise. Denis Valentinovich and I will work on this and report back to you. V. Putin, good. Vyacheslav Vladimirovich, please formalize this as a document. V. Gladkov, understood. V. Putin, thank you. Now, please, Kursk region. Alexei Borisovich Smirnov. A. Smirnov, good afternoon, dear Vladimir Vladimirovich. Dear colleagues. The current situation in the region is challenging. As of today, 28 settlements are under enemy control. The depth of penetration into the territory of the Kursk region is 12 kilometers, with a front width of 40 kilometers. V. Putin, listen, Alexei Borisovich, the military department will report to us about the width and depth. You should tell us about the socio-economic situation and the assistance being provided to people. A. Smirnov, we have 28 settlements in this zone, which involves approximately 2,000 people whose fate is currently unknown. Additionally, there has been a significant increase in drone and missile attacks. A total of 194 missiles and drones have been directed at the region, with 147 intercepted. A residential building, a 9-story apartment block, was hit, injuring 13 people. 2 days ago, there was an explosion during the night over the regional administration building while we were all at work. To coordinate actions, Colonel General Yevgeny Valerievich Nikiforov has arrived to assist us. We have established cooperation with all security forces. As you instructed, Vladimir Vladimirovich, we have divided the relocation of people into 2 stages. The first stage involved evacuating people from 4 districts within a 10-kilometer zone, as well as the Sudzhansky and Koranevsky districts in their entirety. On the 8th, we initiated the full evacuation of all 6 border districts, plus the Bolshe-Soldetsky and Lgovsky districts, which are adjacent to the nuclear power plant. In total, this involves 180,000 people. To date, 121,000 people have been evacuated, and work continues for the remaining 59,000. In addition to our local and federal services, volunteers, youth organizations, and the Young Guard have been engaged in this effort. Currently, 53,000 places have been set up in temporary accommodation centers, TACs, including 20,000 in Moscow, thanks to Sergei Semyonovich for his constant support. In other regions of Russia, 25,000 places have been prepared. We also have 2,400 mobile TACs at the railway station provided by Russian Railways. In total, there are 106 TACs, housing 7,524 people, including 1,083 children. There are reserves, a camp from the Ministry of Emergency Situations, EMERCOM, with 10,000 places has arrived from the Russian Reserve, and an additional 10,000 places are being prepared in Moscow. Psychologists from EMERCOM and local schools, as well as free legal assistance, are available at each TAC. Humanitarian aid is being distributed around the clock. Currently, we have 10,000 daily rations, 28,000 weekly food packages, and 112,000 liters of water available. On the way are 13,000 daily rations, 260,000 liters of water, and 148,000 food packages. There are no issues with supplies. Additionally, we are receiving a significant amount of humanitarian aid from residents, and there is no shortage. Regarding healthcare, we have 1,912 hospital beds available. Additionally, a 100-bed hospital from FMBA and a 100-bed hospital from the Ministry of Health have been set up. There are 108 ambulance teams, with 61 working in the border areas, and air medical services are operational. We have sufficient supplies of medicines and blood. Blood donations continue as needed, with no issues reported. A total of 422 doctors have arrived in the Kursk region, alongside 436 local doctors and 840 middle-level medical personnel. Unfortunately, there have been 12 civilian casualties, and 121 people have been injured, including 10 children. Our call center operates 24/7, along with all available written information points and administrative offices. We have received 35,000 citizen requests. Payments of 10,000 rubles have been processed, funds have been received, and so far, 2,100 citizens have received them, although 46,700 applications have been submitted. We have worked with the Ministry of Digital Development, and starting this morning, we can process 1,000 applications per hour automatically, which will resolve this issue. Funds have been allocated to relocate families from the border area under fire. So far, 300 families have been approved for relocation, 131 applications have been processed, and people are selecting housing, with certificates already issued. Work is ongoing. A decision has been made. Thank you very much to impose a moratorium on payments for housing and communal services and interest on loans. Emergency teams have been created, all services are operational, and we are also addressing damage to industrial enterprises and agricultural producers. This morning, we dispatched a team. 2 days ago, an attempt by a Rossity team to restore power in the Belovsky district failed as they came under fire, including shells containing chemical weapons. They took shelter at the local police station. Everyone survived, but there were cases of poisoning among the police officers and the head of the village council. Today, however, the transformer was repaired under the protection of the National Guard, with the head of the MRSC center personally on site. Half of the district and a pig farm have been reconnected to electricity. We have also begun fulfilling the Ministry of Defense's task of constructing 90 platoon strongpoints, involving 350 pieces of equipment and up to 5,000 builders. We are in constant coordination with First Deputy Prime Minister Denis Valentinovich Mancharov, Marashakir Zyanovich Kusnulin, the Ministry of Construction, and the Ministry of Transportation. Additionally, we have dug 40 kilometers of anti-tank ditches out of the planned 46, and work is nearing completion. We have also started setting up 40 checkpoints. The counter-terrorism operation, CTO, regime has been in place since 11 p.m. on August 9 of this year. We are working with the FSB and the Ministry of Internal Affairs. There are challenges. Given the lack of a clear front line, it is difficult to determine the location of enemy combat units. Volunteers are working, constantly trying to evacuate people. We have requests from relatives for 3,500 people. 2 volunteers are missing, and our volunteer emergency response teams, DND, have encountered enemy sabotage and reconnaissance groups, SRGs, but managed to evacuate around 2,000 people over the past few days. The work continues. It is crucial to know the enemy's whereabouts at any given moment. There was a question about payments, 10,000 rubles and 15,000 rubles. Thank you very much for resolving this issue. People were worried whether these were the same payments or separate. We will now reassure them. Thank you very much, Vladimir Vladimirovich, for the decision. We will assess the damages later. We are currently facing another issue. Settlements and district centers have been deserted. Although the military is active in these areas, not everyone has left, as evacuation is not mandatory, so shops continue to operate. We have been forced to ban alcohol sales and are monitoring cases of looting. There is also the risk that sabotage groups are operating in our uniforms, using our vehicles and documents, so we are strengthening patrols. Moscow has helped by sending 1,000 personnel from a state enterprise, and we are now awaiting additional security forces to protect railway bridges, roads, and people from the Russian Ministry of Transport and our DND. We hope that, as in Moscow's case, these volunteers can be armed. Applications have been submitted by 1,200 people. Currently, up to 500 people are being mobilized daily in shifts. This concludes my report. I am ready to answer any questions. Thank you.